Hi there, I'm Vincent Boss and I provide dating and self-improvement advice. And in today's podcast, we're going to be discussing when Dumper knows they made a mistake. I provide audio and email coaching to help people try and get their ex back or get a new girlfriend or boyfriend. Check out my website for more details. www.dateme.tips. Please check your spam and junk folders if you are expecting an email from me. So now let's get back into today's podcast, and today we are discussing when Dumper knows they made a mistake. If you have been dumped and want to try to get your ex back, your mind will ask one main question. Will my ex, the dumper, ever think they have made a mistake? A dumper will regret their decision when a combination of things take place. Firstly, there needs to be enough fuel. This is romantic emotional attraction, and at the end of a breakup, this would have been very low. This level must have risen to the necessary high point. There then needs to be a spark, and this can be caused by either a realization of present disappointment or a trigger of positive memories with their ex. But what happens then? What does the dumper do at this time? In today's podcast, I'm going to speak of 3 most likely outcomes after a dumper knows they have made a mistake. And I will say these in reverse order. So let's get straight into this, and number 1 is they send their Dumpy Mail. This could be a handwritten posted letter or a typed email. The reasons a dumper might choose this method are twofold. Firstly, they might believe sending communication in this way is more personal and more special. Writing a letter or email is likely to include some type of gushing apology and be full of emotion. Additionally, this type of communication adds less pressure for the dumper, as a non-response could be explained away easily. Perhaps the letter was lost in the post, or maybe the email went to spam. This type of communication feels a lot safer for the dumper. If a dumper decides to send mail, whether it is written through the post or whether it is an email, they will be feeling to themselves that they want to get across their deepest form of apology. They will feel that they're going the extra mile by using communication which is not necessarily the most obvious. Especially if they are writing a written letter and posting it in the mail, this will feel particularly special in the mind of a dumper, and they will be feeling that they are really showcasing their feeling, their regret, and their emotion. Typing an email isn't quite in the same league as writing a handwritten letter, but it is still going above and beyond what most people would probably expect, and therefore it adds that extra value in the dumper's mind when they're showcasing this type of regret and this type of remorse. So if you receive a handwritten letter, if you receive an email as a dumpee, you will likely be reading something which is a lot fuller of emotion than other potential options, because the dumper is of the mindset that they really want to get across their sorrow by doing it in this way. However, as a dumpee, we also need to consider that this is a very low-risk option, and although it has the value of being handwritten or typed in email form, which showcases, at least in the dumper's mind, that there is more effort being put into this, we have to understand as a dumpee that this is the less risky option. This is the least risky option they could choose, and therefore, on one hand, it's more special, but on the other hand, they are trying to hide away from any disappointment that might come their way from us. They are trying to put themselves in a position where if they don't receive a response from a dumpee, they can explain it away easily, and therefore they're removing the pressure. So there are good points and there are bad points. I do believe that this is the least likely option out of everything I'm going to be telling you in today's podcast. Of course, it's not the least likely option available to the dumper when you consider everything possible, but in regards to the 3 most likely options, this, I believe, is the least likely option. It's the least likely option based on the evidence I have, knowing of the amount of times a handwritten letter or email are actually sent. It's a lot less likely than the other 2 options I'm about to tell you. It is also less likely because it takes more effort. And when you combine these two together, that is why that I know that this is the least likely option that you might receive. However, it is within the top 3 possibilities. So you don't want to be ruling this out, but it's probably an unlikely option that it will occur. So if you are a dumpee, that is why your ex might send you a handwritten letter, or they might type you an email. So now let's get into point number 2, and the second possibility of what an ex, the dumper, might do when they realise that they've made a mistake. And number 2 is that they call the dumpee. So calling a dumpee, generally using a telephone call, does add a lot of pressure. And this is because there is no hiding from the result. However, it's still a likely decision that a dumper might decide to make. It has the benefit of being instant, and there is no waiting around wondering if the dumpee is going to reply or not. There is also the opportunity to make this call very impactful, although most dumpers will try their best to stay unemotional during a call. The risk comes from the fact that the call could be ignored, it could be put down, or you might find out that your number has been blocked, and there will be no logical explanation other than the dumpee doesn't want to talk to you. Additionally, the call might be answered, but a frosty and negative exchange take place. So making a phone call, I believe, is a more likely option that a dumper might decide to do when they've decided that they've made a bad choice in dumping their ex. However, it does involve a lot of pressure. There is a lot of risk, and that is because there's no hiding away from whatever the dumpee has decided to do. The dumper will either find out instantly that the dumpee doesn't want to speak, or maybe the dumpee does speak, but it just doesn't go well. The benefit, though, as I said, is that it's instantaneous. A dumper that doesn't want to wait around and try to see if they will get a response in the days or weeks ahead might choose phoning their ex because it is instantaneous. It gives them that instant, they're either in or they're out, that feeling that I'm going to get this over with. I don't want to be waiting around any longer. Let's just see if my ex, the dumpee, wants to speak and whether this can be a positive exchange. There is a lot of risk involved, as I said, but some dumpers will use this option because they believe, pound for pound, this is the best decision they can make and this is the best option they can choose. They do have that opportunity to really personalise this call, to really get across their feelings, but from experience and from the research I've done, most dumpers will stay fairly unemotional during such a call, and sometimes they will even try to make out that they're calling their ex just off the cuff, just to see how they're doing, with no real feeling attached, when deep down the dumpee should be realising that their ex, the dumper, would not have made such a call unless they are feeling regretful. So now let's get into point number 3 and the final point of today's podcast, and the most likely outcome of what an ex, the dumper, will do if and when they realise they've made a mistake, and that is that they text their dumpee. So by far the most likely outcome of a dumper realising they've made a mistake is for them to text their dumpee. This is a quick and simple method that can be crafted to mean they get their message across perfectly. However, most dumpers will send a very basic text first of all, and generally the dumpee will not receive something which explains their ex's feelings particularly well. However, most dumpers will be meaning to try to build this conversation, and whether they do send something more substantial or not, this is generally what they're trying to get across if they reach out to their ex, the dumpee, for no valid reason. There is much less pressure sending a text, and some messaging options will mean that the dumper won't even know if their ex has even received or read the message. This gives the dumper opportunity to make excuses if they don't receive a reply. So similar to point number 1, if they don't receive a reply, the dumper can say to themselves, there's probably a reason. In point number 1, I was saying that the dumper might say to themselves, the physical letter I've written might have got lost in the post. Or maybe the typed email I've sent has got lost in spam. So regarding messages, a dumper can make excuses such as maybe the messaging service has gone down, and depending on what messaging application the dumper decides to use, they can really create excuses in their mind as for why their dumpee hasn't decided to reply. So it gives them that protection that using option number 2, the telephone call, will not give them. And that is why this option, point number 3, sending a message, is much more likely for a dumper to use, because there is so little pressure. Not only does sending a text give the dumper an excuse if they don't receive a reply, but also just sending it is very easy. Sending a text message takes very little effort, and as I said previously, if they decide to send a more substantial message, they have opportunity to craft this message. They can type it out, read it through, delete it, retype it, all of these things which point number 1 and point number 2 doesn't give them opportunity to do. If you're sending an email, of course you could try to recraft it, but eventually you're just going to be sending this email out. And if you're writing a letter, you're not going to be able to keep rewriting this because you're going to be going through so much paper. Those two methods are likely to be done in one kind of instance. Sending a text, people often type a text out and just leave it hanging without clicking send. For a lot of time, it could be there for days, where you're just kind of looking back at it, trying to make your decisions. And it doesn't have to be very long. I mean, although they have the opportunity to make it more substantial, text messages by their very concept are generally not very long. So a text message can be sent, and if it's not very long, it doesn't particularly look unusual. So it just makes it a lot easier. This is a much simpler option for a dumper, and that is why it is the most likely outcome for where a dumper realises that they've made a mistake and want to contact their dumpee with the hope of reconnecting. Now, if you want to understand what you need to do as a dumpee, if you receive any of this communication, please make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel and check out all of the content that I have uploaded. If you subscribe, you will be notified of my future content, and you can check out all of the playlists that I've done on the particular options to really help you on your breakup journey. Always remember that with or without your ex, you will have a positive future. And even if you don't get your ex back, if you do everything right, you will find somebody even better. If you believe that this podcast has helped you, then please consider buying me a coffee. The link to do so is in the description.
Yeah, if you miss your ex, we can help with that. Help you get him back, or we can help find you someone else. Yeah, Vincent Bo, the relationship coach, giving you some insight, bringing you a new approach. DateMe.tips, go and check the site, giving you advice, helping with your love life. Get your ex back, or move to the next. Ain't no sweat, you know Vincent Bo got you. Finding love ain't no problem. Yeah, DateMe.tips, check it out now.